you should know that those decisions are not made by Erika. That's what it means to step into a company of that size and that scale. I just think everyone is being a little unfair by trying to assign so much ill will towards someone who hasn't done anything to warrant that.
Candace Owens just blasted those attacking Erika Kirk in the days following the assassination of her husband, the late conservative Charlie Kirk, and in this video she explains why no suspicions whatsoever should be hurled in her direction, and the things that Turning Point USA hasn't been exactly forthcoming about are not her fault. Also, will answer definitively one of the eyebrow-raising claims people say shows foreknowledge of the assassination before it happened. I'll demo that on screen based on my own personal expertise, so let's get into it. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
Okay, I want to at first address, because I've received so many emails, Candace, have you seen this? Have you watched this? And it is Range Day Bro on YouTube. And the video was just absolutely viral. It's got 6 million views. And by the way, I am so happy that it's got 6 million views. Everybody investigating this is exactly what we need. And nobody is going to be perfect. We're going to get things wrong. And we can only work with the information that's been given to us. And for whatever reason, it's very limited. So every time anything that I'm debunking here is just because I want to help focus his investigation. But so he presents an argument that you can see a muzzle flash. And there is one element of his video where he shows what he believes to be blood splatter as an entry point on Charlie's neck. So we can watch that, take a listen.
And in that video, you can see the same, what appears to be the bullet coming down, and it does line up with the actual gunshot itself.
So you're not counting gang violence. Great.
So this video was created by a friend of mine who is a Marine. You'll see him here at the end. This is the angle he is showing the shot coming from, showing where Charlie was sitting, and the angle of the shot, which will correspond with this video here, which unfortunately we will blur out Charlie's face, but we will show what is necessary to prove that this was an entry and exit wound. So you'll see him circle the highlighted area right there, and you'll see the exit wound corresponding after, a split second after, as it would from an entry and exit wound. So in this footage, you can clearly see that Charlie is shot from his back right, and there is blood splatter coming out of the entry wound.
Okay.
I don't know if I could be so sure that's blood, by the way. You know, it could be a lot of other things, but I do want to hear what Candace has to say about it.
So what I can immediately help with, because I have so much footage and clearer footage of that, is that's actually not blood splatter. And I was very surprised by this. It's his necklace. That is his necklace. And it was one of the things that struck me as odd. And I saw the back footage, and then I have clear footage from the front. And the necklace goes first. And if I'm looking at it, it looks like it breaks from here, and then it comes up and it whips up. That is Charlie's necklace chain. So I hope that sort of helps focus that. And I don't know if that helps change your opinion at all, but I wanted to add that. The second thing is,
yeah, interesting. She has seen footage from behind, the Turning Point USA footage that was captured by the organization and supposedly turned over to the FBI. That hasn't been made public, but Candace is one of the few people that have seen that. So I think it shows some character here that she is willing to say that, you know, for people saying that, you know, she's just going down every stupid rabbit hole and under the sun. And I'm not saying necessarily this theory was that. I'm saying people are saying about her on everything. It would have been the easiest thing to encourage, you know, this being true because it, you know, diverts from the government narrative that this guy was shot, you know, between like 175 yards toward the front, and that wasn't an exit wound, that was actually an entry wound according to the feds. Now, I'm not saying that theory has to be wrong just because of this, but it's also worthy to listen to the people that have seen that footage when we haven't, rather than to be so sure that that was blood when, you know, when we view it, it won't be as such. And that's not to say that our interpretive skill on those things is perfect, but what comes from more angles is, you know, more clarity on these sorts of things. So I got to hand it to Candace on that one.
I wanted to show you a photo, a different angle of where that flash that he is looking at came from, because the thing that I don't understand is that particular window doesn't open. So if you're saying it's inside, and I might be wrong, so you can see, and I hope I have this right. If I'm wrong, please let me know, and I will adjust it immediately. But that window is from that zone, which they call like the flag hall, which is where that person actually shot the footage. He's on the other side of it, where we saw the person running across the roof. That's basically above the underpass. And so you can see from this angle that those windows, I don't know if we have a more forward picture of that, Skylar. If we don't, it's okay. But from everything that I could see, those windows don't open. So if it's coming from inside, if that's where you're saying, and I had that location correctly, again, I'm happy to update this if I'm wrong, then we should see broken glass.
Yeah, another case where I think Candace is being really honest here. Again, people are saying that, she's being so reckless with this investigation and just let the feds handle it, right? Like they always handle great, murder cases to their perfect expertise, like JFK, and the evils they've committed, like in Waco and Ruby Ridge, and entrapment schemes with the Whitmer kidnapping case and things like that. We should never trust the FBI, but a lot of people are, hoisting their fervor toward Candace Owens right now for daring to investigate this and some of the angles that the feds haven't addressed. And again, it would have been the easiest thing for Candace to say, yeah, that's crazy, without, applying some expertise that throws some shade on that theory. So I think she is a woman of integrity, especially in this case. There's been some things in this case that me and Candace disagree with to some extent, but this is extremely responsible journalism, if you ask me.
So let me know if I'm right about that. I will say there was another piece, and this part I have not been able to debunk, but I am sending someone there to get me similar footage, which is when you discuss a suspicious looking bush. So I will let Range Day Bro present that theory. Take a listen.
I want to take a look at this photo next. This guy's talking about this bush up here in the top left of this photo, and he zooms in on it. And he's stating that it does look suspicious. It does look suspicious. It looks like there is a person right here, and it looks like there is a rifle right here that the person is holding. A hand here, a support hand, sort of very blurry image, but you can clearly make out that this is not just a bush. This is a human skin tone right here, and this correlates with a human head and hair and a rifle in the exact kind of crucifix shape of an AR-15 with an optic on it mounted up.
So what I can say, and I'm looking at my minute-to-minute text messages because I sent somebody there on the ground to get me pictures of that bush today, and I agree with you. In the smaller, in the photos that I'm looking at today, the bush, you can kind of see through it. And in the image that you have, granted, it is grainy. It doesn't seem like you can see through it. So I am interested in that, and I am prodding that narrative, and I will let you know what I come up with. Anyways, again, the point of me doing that was just to help further direct your theories. Everybody is coming out with ideas, and I think that's great until the feds answer our questions.
Which will be never. I can't be convinced that's a guy with an AR-15, especially being that specific about the type of firearm he's saying that guy is holding. If that's a guy, I mean, that is very grainy. And I admit, like, looking at those similarities, it looks like that could be possible, but I don't think you can be definitive about it. And the other thing I'll say, if there was a guy like that at that time frame, that was when this area was mostly clear, but you saw some people sitting in that amphitheater type area. I think that would have been seen so much easier than the guy way toward the back, which was caught too on a guy's video, and Candace has talked about that too. So I don't think that this can be clear. I think someone would have seen this so much easier than the guy on the rooftop toward the back that we have seen.
Until we see more footage of what took place that day, all of us need to stay on top of it because we all sense that something is very wrong and we are not getting the truth. One more thing that I'd like to share with you guys, you will recall yesterday during the comment section, we got a tip, a young woman that said that doorbell footage was intentionally presented to the public only partially, and that the reality is that there was more footage which showed the person that they allege is Tyler Robinson walking with a woman who they don't know who that is, and that he changes clothes. So I'm not sure if there was more footage on the side of the house. There's another angle, but there was allegedly footage of Tyler changing clothes, and he is with an unidentified woman. What I will say is I have established connection with that individual, and it's a solid lead, and it's only going to get more interesting in terms of who is involved in that cover-up locally, like a Utah person involved in that cover-up, which is another piece of this puzzle that I find to be fascinating.
Yeah, it is. It'll be interesting if any kind of video is produced that purports to show this, especially from that individual. Candace Owens did bring this up on her previous broadcast from yesterday. I hope she gets this footage, and I think we can be pretty well sure that if they're evasive about turning over footage and things like that, either they're scared to do it, or, this could be a troll. Who knows? I hope this lead is followed. It is interesting that someone brought that up on the show yesterday. We'll see where it goes. My mind's open to it, just like everything else in this case, so we'll see.
I will have more for you guys next week as we continue this. I always want to make sure that we give people an opportunity to respond and to answer what it is that we are putting out there and making sure that our reports are accurate. And I will have more for you on that next week. I do also want to address people who are inundating me speaking about Erika Kirk. And I think the reason why this was catalyzed was because of a fundraising email and text messages went out, and people found it to be distasteful and like a fundraising off of his death. Okay, first and foremost, the reason why I said, and I meant it genuinely, was to pray for Erika a couple of days ago. And I said she is stepping into a role as CEO and the chairman of a company that got bigger than Charlie, by everything that I am understanding, and just having been there, I saw it happening, and a company that she's going to have to learn in 4 seconds how this whole thing's work. It is a machine, okay? Those emails that you saw that was not written by Erika Kirk. That will be an entire department, and these are emails when you fundraise. I've had fundraising emails go out with my face and my name on them. They are not authored by Erika Kirk, and I want you guys to know that, right? I just think it's like, I don't know, it just feels so unfair to me to assign the amount of pressure that is on her right now. She has not come out and said anything to me that makes her suspicious, because I understand how that organ works. And I understand how people, when they are motivated by money, how they don't even think about these things. It can be so gross. I mean, I have really gotten into arguments with people when I felt that they were using my face and representing things, and I was getting pushback from the public. And I'm like, I would have never done this.
Yeah, ultimately, she may have signed off on the fundraising mailers that she sent out, but here's what I'll ask. If your husband died and he was a charismatic head of this kind of organization, how long should you wait until you fundraise mentioning that person's death? That person's, sinister death. His sinister assassination that we all saw in 4K, right? How long should you wait? I mean, everyone's going to have a different date in terms of that, but I think that they have to mention this when they're messaging, even during fundraising. And why wouldn't you? If you want to push this organization forward, I don't see anything gross about that. And I can also attest to the fact that this does happen in organizations, especially large organizations. And it's probably the case that very few times the person whose name is signed to these kind of fundraising mailers, press releases, things like that, is the actual writer of that. Maybe that does happen in small organizations. I think it does in some cases. But I'll tell you, with my experiences working with the Libertarian Party and some other organizations, oftentimes staffers wrote these notes. It went through a set of approvals. Then it went out. Sometimes, the persons whose name was stamped would approve it, obviously so. But that doesn't tell us anything about whether this was Erika or not. I see this as a nothing burger. I don't think that there's anything duplicitous or evil or, anything wrong with this whatsoever, especially because she's newer to the role. And I'm not saying it's impossible someone doesn't write their own fundraising mailer, but I think the case, in this case, it's probably a very slim possibility.
I've never made that decision. And yet I'm going to be the person that gets all the flack for the decision that you made. I've had those arguments. And so when I see this go out, irrespective of how you feel, you should know that those decisions are not made by Erika. That's what it means to step into a company of that size and that scale, okay? Their focus is going to be something different. And she has had, I think, a tremendous amount of grace in the speech that she gave, which I felt was very inspiring. And we should similarly have grace, give her time to get her, first and foremost, the adjustment in her life. She is a mother, first and foremost, right?
Yeah, amen. I couldn't agree with Candace more here. For her to forgive the killer, she believes this guy's the killer, whether you do or not. Maybe you believe that there are multiple people involved, including Tyler Robinson. She believes it's Tyler Robinson. She forgave him, so she's a better human being than I am. I'm sorry, I don't know that I could do that, and I'm a Christian, and I'd like to think that I could do that in the moment. I'm not so sure I could. we are beholden to human impulses, and that is something that shows amazing grace. And they had a very close relationship, very close family, small children that won't remember Charlie, which is just horrific. And she's handled this with so much character and grace and, just kindness that there would be no way that I could look down upon a person like that and how she's handled this.
What she was doing, she was a mom, and Charlie was on the road, and these were Charlie's concerns. Men carry the weight of the world on their shoulders, and they were following that. This was a faithful couple. This is a woman who consulted a priest and prayed when she felt that somebody had put a hex on her husband. And I just think everyone is being a little unfair by trying to assign so much ill will towards someone who hasn't done anything to warrant that. And I would have been the first person. If I felt that anything was there, I would have said something. Truly, in every capacity. And of course, I'm not in their marriage, but I know that Charlie was very happy with Erika. And I know that Erika was a reason. She was, pushing Charlie, as women do, to really think through his ideas and think through what it was that he believed in one way or the other.
Absolutely. And again, I think Candace deserves a lot of credit for this perspective when so many people are saying, hey, she's being so responsible about this episode series, launching her own investigation when we have all the answers from the feds, which we don't, by the way. Some of us disagree on things that are more concrete and those things that aren't. But again, this is another avenue where it would have been easiest for Candace Owens, if she really wants to take this to the extreme conspiracy theory angles that don't purport to truth and reason and fact, by saying, yeah, Erika had a motive, right? That's the most cynical way to look at this thing, because she's now the CEO of Turning Point USA. So some people on that basis would say, oh, I guess she had a motive. She's been placed in power over this organization as CEO now. But we all think that's preposterous, rightly so, because of how close they were, because there's no evidence pointing to that whatsoever. But, that's a cynical view. I mean, I think to some extent it's a cynical view when people say, well, this has to be Mossad no matter what. But in Israel's case, they have proven a track record for assassinations and carrying out a genocide on the bankroll of the United States. They sucked the U.S. into foreign regime change operations, which they tried to make Iran be, by the way. And they succeeded to do that with the U.S. in Syria and Libya and Iraq. Don't get me wrong, there were neocon blowhards, vile, monstrous neocons, and people in the Democratic establishment that supported those things, but that is the results of the Israel First doctrine. That's what we get. So, there's more reason to be cynical with Israel, but you know what I think about that. I don't think evidence points that way. And, you can say there's a motive there too. If you spin, selectively some of Charlie's comments in recent weeks about Israel, and then you can find Hasbara and Zionist propaganda amongst those other comments. We've talked about that. I think it's a mixed bag. And the only way to look at this is that he wasn't Ben Shapiro, and he also wasn't Dave Smith on Israel. So that's where we are.
And by and large, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I had this relationship that I had with Charlie, that I had with Erika, of course, because neither he or I were married when we were hitting the road together. But she made him happy. And I just want you guys to know that. And so when you're putting stuff out there, just imagine that you're in her shoes. Imagine the size and the scale of that company. And imagine that on top of everything, you've got people that are digging into every layer of your life and not necessarily getting everything right. I can't stop reading conspiracies about me and my husband. I've read that my husband is Jewish. I've read that my husband is a Freemason. I read that our marriage is fake and staged. And I've read that I'm funded by Russia. I'm funded by Qatar. I'm funded by Andrew Tate, because Andrew Tate is also from the UK. And my husband knew him before he met me, which means absolutely nothing. I mean, it never stops. And to be thrown into fame, I think, is very difficult when you're not pursuing it yourself, and to be thrown in such a horrific way, it just can't be fun. So I'm just reminding us all to just have a little bit of grace is all. Renee writes, have you covered the Amazon listing from September 9th for a book about Charlie with all the details, which were pretty accurate, of what happened on the 10th? I have a picture of a screenshot supposedly verified. Yeah, I think Amazon came out and said that it was a technical error, because I guess you can adjust the date. To be honest with you, I didn't look into it. Because there's 1,000 ways that you could run with this. And I wanted to keep the pressure on the feds, and I wanted to keep the pressure on getting as much information as I could about what took place on that day. But I know there are people that have made a lot of videos about that. And so maybe I'll watch one of those.
Yeah, and I can answer that because I am an author that has published 3 books through Amazon, through their Kindle Direct program, which is a subsidiary of Amazon. One is Compact of the Republic, the League of States and the Constitution. One is Thomas Paine, A Lifetime of Radicalism, a biography on Thomas Paine. And one is on the 14th Amendment. So I took a lot of time, wrote these books. I'm not trying to boast about this, not trying to say that I'm special, but it does put me in the position of being able to kind of debunk this one. So it's not a technical error. It's actually something that Amazon allows you to do, or I should say Kindle Direct Publishing allows you to do, and I'll prove it. So here I am on my publisher page. These are some of the books that I've created, right? They're out there on Amazon. If you want to buy them, I appreciate it, by the way. But for this exercise, I created this test publication book to show you that this is possible. I just did this today right before this call, and before this comes out, this will have been done on September 25th. I did this. Here's a book. We can go in and edit the paperback's content. And once we get in there, you can make a variety of choices of what you want your book to be. And in the paperback details section, I'm just going to navigate there. You have the ability down here, and you can see, this is how you can know that I did this for this exercise. This is for the Charlie Kirk story for demonstration. I talked about that, but just to show you. Down here, you can put my book was previously published and then put a previous date, and it accepts that. It allows me to save and continue, doesn't throw out any error, and presumably you're able to just publish with a retroactive date in the past. And that's what I think people are seeing here. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that this wasn't nefarious. If someone created a book and they intended to publish it on a prior date and then some snag happened in the publication process, they needed a few more days to edit it or something, then they came back here and they didn't go back and edit that date to a more recent one or one in the future, you can see how they would push this through and it would be published by Amazon. So I just wanted to show you that is possible. Based on what I'm seeing here from my knowledge from being an Amazon publisher. I also wanted to share something regarding the roof, because some people have said that, you know, the guy on the roof was only up there a minute. And that seems to come from the idea that the guy that saw the guy on the roof and had footage of it, you know, it kind of looks small from a length away. We've seen that footage. Candace has presented that is evidence that he was only there for a minute, because supposedly that was captured at 12:22 local time and Charlie Kirk was shot at 12:23. Well, police are saying, this is straight from the indictment document, that they have video surveillance that he dropped on the roof at 12:15. And I'm not saying, hey, you know, it's the feds. I'm not saying just trust that, but this is presumably going to enter into evidence if this goes to trial. You know, it might not go to trial. We don't know if this guy is going to confess or not. We don't know if he's going to plead guilty. He hasn't pled yet. He's just been indicted and charged officially. But this is what the feds are going with. So I'd be very careful about saying that, you know, we know he was only on the roof for a minute, because if this footage comes out and it's time-stamped and there's ways to verify, like you can't alter that timestamp, and, you know, they might have more footage that we haven't seen. They certainly haven't been forthcoming with a lot of it, including the footage of him on the stairwell. It doesn't necessarily mean he was there for a minute. Now, if he was there for a minute, it's really hard for me to think that he could have assembled this rifle and taken the shot in a minute and run to the perch in the prone location and to shoot Charlie Kirk in a minute. But I'm just saying, be open-minded about the fact that the feds are saying it's 8 minutes. They might have some evidence to show on that. We can scrutinize that if it comes out and there's holes in it. But I'd be careful about, you know, being so rigid about this only to see that and then, you know, looking like a fool potentially. And I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm saying keep your mind open on this. So that's where we're at. The last thing I want to say is just I really appreciate Candace Owens for the way she's addressing this case. There's some things in it that she is much more confident in being like a Fed doctoring scheme or a cover-up than I am, especially the text messages. I won't belabor that, but I really appreciate her for throwing shade on things that, you know, while interesting and salacious, don't really comport to fact. And in this episode, I think she did that better than any other episode that she's had covering this case. And, you know, you just have to hand it to her, because this is the new age in the new media where people, you know, have been burned by the FBI so many times, have been burned by the state in general, our criminal swamp government in DC, whether it's Republican or Democrat, whether it was Biden or Trump, the Republicans are in power, the Democrats are in power. You know, people are not trusting the FBI. That's like one of the last institutions that people generally trust. And this, you know, investigation, she seems to bring the daylight to that subject more than almost anything does. It's these independent sleuth sessions, these independent investigations that are actually interesting, and something that was not really possible even 10, 20 years ago. You didn't see this. I'm all for it. You know, if you have problems with Candace's viewpoints and things she thinks are interesting about this and you don't, you know, we can always tackle those things individually. I've done that on this channel. But the approach is something I'll defend until the end. I think Candace is doing a great job here. She's not just yielding to everything salacious, as we talked about regarding that window thing and the possible chain thing. Maybe we'll see that footage soon. Hopefully we do. And the autopsy, by the way, because there's some things that aren't completely clear about that too. But I commend Candace Owens, and I hope you enjoyed watching this. But what do you think? What do you think the most interesting angle of this case is that's showing Fed duplicity? Let me know in the comments down below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, also subscribe to Candace Owens, and please consider becoming a member. Click the join button below to do that. You can help support the channel, and in return I'll give you access to all my videos before they go live to the general public on YouTube. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.